Great appreciation for your
donation.
continuous dedication.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Oh,
I wasn't there to receive it, so she.
Oh, you didn't know you were receiving one?
No, but I didn't go to the gala.
What gala?
Yeah, exactly. Or keep. very well become a new business owner in the near future. More to be announced. And he has. Are there any single women here? Yeah. His son-in-law or brother-in-law. Hell of a good-looking guy.
That's an right?
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah. Have you've seen Anthony in the team call? Yeah. Handsome man. Yeah. Good-looking guy.
Can we start now?
We can start now. But Lightsaber Pole Fence, I believe, is the world's largest pole fence company in the world. I think roughly between 100 and 150 people put on a Lifesaver Pole Fence shirt every day before they go to work. We're throughout the country. We're in 31 states in the U.S., and we have locations internationally. So there's a Lifesaver of Thailand, there's a Lifesaver of Dubai, there's a Lifesaver of Portugal. So it's a pretty decent-sized company that I would say I took it over from my parents, but Charlotte keeps saying, well, like, why don't you tell people that you bought in? So yeah, I bought my parents' shares at one point and took over the company they started back in the 80s when I was 21 years old after working there for a fortnight. So that's my deal. But
I just have a couple of announcements. Tonight's event is the cruise. You do have to have a ticket. They are asking that you show up 30 minutes beforehand. It is a half-mile walk. They don't actually tell me specifically where it's at, but I know it's landing. Yeah, it's a landing on this side, so it can't be too far.
Starbucks.
Okay.
Starbucks.
Excellent. And I think all the other events have already happened today, so that's good. Is anyone in here needing the CEUs? Yes. Okay, so I'll do that at the end of it. If there's any other questions, I can possibly answer, but this event or this,
whatever the hell this is.
it is a long title, this session, exactly.
What did I name it?
You named it.
What did ChatGPT name it?
From Disabled and Suicidal to Sensational and Successful.
Hell yeah.
Inspiring yet tactical plan to supercharge your revenue and reach.
Wait.
So,
Wow.
I mean, I know, I mean, I can feel it.
Right? You
I
can feel it deep
all
inside.
all the way to my flippies.
Yeah. the floppies.
Floppies. Anyway, take it away.
All right, sir. I'll wait for you to get out of the way.
No, get out.
All right. I'm going to use notes over here. There's a screen here, so I apologize. But, my dad was a heroin addict for many years, and after that, he was a methadone addict. He was also a successful business owner and an amazing father and a great husband. My dad started doing heroin while serving in Vietnam. He was in a combat position, serving as the leader of a long-range patrol group that would go deep into the enemy jungle alone and try to find things they could destroy, or that they could call in air support to destroy. It was the kind of role you might see in a movie about soldiers in Vietnam, with all the atrocities that went with it. Most members of his squad died shortly after joining. The turnover rate was extremely high. He told the story of one soldier who tried to injure himself to get sent home, but the attempt went horribly wrong and ended with a bullet coming out of his chest, killing him instantly. Given these conditions, it almost makes sense that someone would turn to something like heroin to escape, and many others in his position did that exact same thing. The majority of soldiers who did drugs like heroin in Vietnam left their drug use in Asia, no longer needing the coping mechanism upon returning to normal life. My dad did not. His life back home wasn't that great either, and his addiction to heroin continued for many years. He eventually sought treatment, which meant methadone in the 70s and 80s. Methadone is another opiate narcotic very similar to heroin. It's essentially like giving someone addicted to wine beer instead. It's not a whole lot better, but it's legal and it's regulated. So the thinking at the time was that it was an improvement over what he was currently doing. He was on methadone for nearly another decade. So why am I telling you all this? It's because of the thing I said at the beginning. He was a great entrepreneur, a great dad, and a great husband. And those aren't traits you normally associate with junkies. He spent the first 3.5 decades of his life doing terrible things to himself, causing himself great harm, and not experiencing a whole lot of success. But everyone I knew who knew him thinks of him as nothing but successful, like Kate. They knew him as somebody who always did the correct thing, who was honest to a fault, who gave great guidance, who was meticulous and organized to a frustrating degree, and who was successful in every definition of the word with his business and with his family. So how's this possible? Because you can totally blow it, do nothing productive, and live an all-around terrible life until you're around 40 or maybe even 50, and still turn things around and be successful and be someone that other people aspire to become, which I always did. We put so much pressure on ourselves to hit certain milestones by certain arbitrary times, and the reality is that it's all bullshit. Students think they can't take a year off between high school and college because then they'll be behind at a disadvantage, when the truth is they could probably take 15 years off and still be just fine. What you've done before does not have to dictate who you're going to be in the future. My dad at 20 was a junkie. My dad at 30 was a junkie. His parents wouldn't talk to him. My dad at 50 was running a national company that he started in his garage with my mom, doing over $1 million in revenue. I would take this business over a few years later when he retired at 53 years old. My dad at 65 owned a Porsche and a 32-foot Catalina sailboat and was ziplining in Mexico wearing a Rolex. He was a father to adult sons who were all doing great and admired him. He was adored by everyone who knew him. If other people can do it and have done it, you certainly can too. If you're not happy with where you're at, there's no reason you can't change. You literally just have to start. But starting is the hard part. It's especially hard to start when it's not clear how you're going to make it to the finish line. But once you start trying, as we learned from Jurassic Park, life finds a way. And if you can adapt and keep putting yourself out there, not only do you figure it out, but you give people the opportunity to help you along the way. When I was in 7th grade, my electric wheelchair was dying, much different from the one I have right now. Growing up, my wheelchairs would last around 5 years before they were just breaking down all the time, and they were too unreliable to keep using. This chair was on its last legs, or wheels, I guess, and it had a gang of quirks and idiosyncrasies that I had to navigate to make it through the day. Unfortunately, power wheelchairs are expensive. I don't know if you know this, but the price tag on the chair that I was going to get next was about $12,000. And insurance doesn't help. There's no government support. We were responsible for the entire thing out of pocket, which has been true for my entire life. And my parents didn't have anywhere close to $12,000 to invest in a wheelchair for their middle schooler. So in the weeks leading up to Christmas, I took a Folgers coffee can with a hole cut in the lid, and I taped a label to the front of it that read Eric Lupton's Wheelchair Fund. And I parked myself outside of an Eckerd's. You guys remember Eckerd's? That's how long ago this was. Yeah. So even at 12 years old, my extroverted salesman nature was already developing, a trait that has probably receded in the last decade or so, I think. I've gotten kind of introverted. And I engaged every single person that walked outside the Eckerd's. I didn't ask them for anything. I just said hello, and I smiled, and I asked them how they were doing. And over again, people put money into my can. I did this every day after school, a few hours a day, all day Saturday and Sunday. And then, thank you. And then after a week, I figured out that I was making about $20 an hour, which is pretty incredible because I was like 12, and that was awesome. But even in the 90s, but even at $20 an hour, I realized it was taking about 600 hours to reach my goal. And we were only a couple weeks from Christmas, and we fully expected that donations were going to evaporate once the holiday spirit expired. So I wasn't going to make it. My dad had a mailing list of all of his pool fence customers, so he sent a letter out to all of them, and he told the story and explained how I was trying to raise money for this wheelchair. And the response was really great, but we were still a really long way off from our goal of 12K. So I kept doing the Eckerd's thing day in and day out. People gave change or $1. Some people gave a couple dollars. And some truly generous people would give me a $5 bill, which I was always really happy about. And one day, this dude in a hurry slides a $10 bill into my can, and I'm stunned. But before I can thank him, he's gone. He takes off. And I was kicking myself for not being quick enough to thank him, and the guilt ate at me for the rest of my shift. When my mom came to pick me up, I told her the story, and I told her I wish I'd been able to tell him how much I appreciated this truly outlier of a donation. My parents took me to Longhorn that night so I could get what is still one of my all-time favorite meals, which is a loaded baked potato, just the potato. That's perfect, as it is. I used to literally live on just baked potatoes, as you should too. They're really good for you. While I was enjoying my conduit for cheese,